All right, so here's day 2 of 533. So yesterday you saw the long version, how we set up 3 similar triangles, we match up their angles, and then we determine which of the 2 or which of the 3 triangles we use to set up our ratios to find our missing sides. Now, I know some of you were trying to figure out the little pattern, and some of you did, but there actually are 2 formulas that we're going to work on, or 2 what we call shortcuts for hypotenuse or altitude to the hypotenuse theorem. So make sure you take notes down today, and today I want you to practice using those shortcuts. If you don't like them after today, then go back to the original way of doing it. These are the same way to do the same problems as we did yesterday. So I'm just showing you another way to do that. So here we go. On page 89, or sorry, 98, this is the notes that we're going to do. All right. So what I'm going to want you to do is I want you to draw down what we have here. All right. So I'm actually just going to cover this up so you don't see all of it right now. And this is the first formula. So there are 2 of them. And it depends on what your diagram shows you, like where the variables are, where the constants are, and then that determines which formula you're going to use. So first one is dealing with the altitude. All right. So it's called altitude squared equals left times right. So let me show you what this is going to look like. So altitude squared means that either you have the altitude or you have a variable that is your altitude. So remember yesterday we talked about the altitude is the side or the length from the right angle, from the vertex of the right angle to your hypotenuse. So that's your altitude right there, okay? So it's altitude squared is equal to left times right. So left times right. Left is once you get to your hypotenuse, all right, it's the left part of your hypotenuse here. So let's just say this right now is, I don't know, 9. All right, oops, sorry, 9. All right, and then times right, your right side is the right part of the hypotenuse right here. And let's call this, all right, 4. All right, so the formula to find x is not necessarily setting up similar triangles, but it works the same way. It's going to set up the ratio that your similar triangles will give you. It's going to look like this. It's going to be altitude, which is x squared, equals left part, which in this case is 9, times the right part, which is 6. Do I have 6? No, 4. Sorry. Oh, God. Perfect. All right. And then you just simplify and solve. So x squared equals 9 times 4 is 36. The square root of 36 is equal to x equals 6. And that's what you would still get if you set up your similar triangles. But this is, well, much shorter and leaves less room for error. But you have to memorize this formula. So it's altitude squared equals left times right. So that's your first formula. Altitude squared equals left times right. Cool? All right, so that's one of them. Now this is the other one. Now for many of you, you figured out this first one. You were picking this up yesterday. But this one, I'm pretty sure you may not have picked up. All right? Now this is leg squared equals short adjacent times the hypotenuse. Now some of you are like, holy cow, what did he just say? Well, here's the deal. Let's say I have a variable as not the altitude, but let's say it's a leg of the big right triangle. And what I mean is this is your big right triangle. You see this? Your legs are one of these 2 sides. I'll highlight the leg for you. All right? Your legs could be this side, or this side. But in the case of this problem, clearly it's the one with x. So again, that's not what we're going to use, but we would use that leg. So right now it's going to be x squared, all right? And again, it doesn't always have to be the variable as the leg, all right? But in this case, I'm just making it the variable. So it's going to be x squared equals. Now, here's the trick, right? And you have to understand this from the video. So if you're not getting it, pause it, restart it, listen again. The first part says short adjacent. Now, all hypotenuses of the big triangle are split into 2 parts. There's a short adjacent and then the entire hypotenuse. That's it. Short adjacent is always the side or the part of the hypotenuse. So the part of hypotenuse, HYP, that touches the leg. So touches the leg. So this part right here touches the leg here. See that short little piece right here? Because we chose this leg that had the variable on it. So let's call this 10. All right. And then the second part is just the entire hypotenuse. You see this? So short adjacent times hypotenuse. So let's say I gave you this side, which was 4. You see that? So the entire hypotenuse, the entire hypotenuse means that you need the entire distance of 14. So let's go back over this. So the formula is leg squared equals short adjacent times the entire hypotenuse. Oh, and that's what I want to write here. Entire. The whole thing. And it's you adding it together. All right? So the formula is going to be x squared equals 10 times 14. See that? Because 10 is your short adjacent, 14 is your entire thing. So now when you simplify this, all right, you're going to get x squared equals 10 times 14 is 140. And now you're going to have to break this apart using perfect squares. So again, remember your perfect squares are, and I'll list them out over here, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49, 64, 81, 100, ... So what's the largest perfect square that's divisible into 140? I believe 140 divided by, I think 4 is the only one, because what you're going to get from here is the square root of 4 times the square root of 35, because 4 times 35 gives you 140. So we're going to get x equals, all right, square root of 4 is 2 root 35. And that is your final answer. All right? And that's your second formula. It's leg squared equals short adjacent times the entire hypotenuse. So let me show you another way that we can use that. So you have this. I'm going to erase this to give us some more room. And this is why I drew a second diagram up here. All right? So ready? Let's say you know your hypotenuse or your leg. So let's use this now. Let's call this 10. All right, 10's easy to work with. All right, so let's call that 10, all right? And let's say that you have this distance of x, all right? Oops, why does that keep going away? I don't know why. Actually, let's do this. Let's make this 6, all right? And then let's make this x right here. Come on, man. Okay. Oh, if it disappears again, I'm done. So anyway, if you look, all right, a lot of kids are going to look at this and say, all right, I can use altitude. But if you don't have a variable for altitude, you don't have anything here, you don't want to add in another variable. But since you have a leg, and we're always dealing with a big triangle, since we have a leg of the big triangle that we know, we can do leg squared. So in this case, it's 10 squared. Come on, man. So it's going to be 10 squared is, okay, cool. Here we go. Let's see if this works. Oh, man. All right, 10 squared, so leg squared is equal to short adjacent, so 6 times, I don't know why it keeps doing this, but in a second I'm just going to stop this thing. This is going to be bad. All right, so it's going to be 10 squared equals 6 times, oh baby, here we go, ready? And then you got to do the entire thing, because 6 is your short adjacent, not x this time, because your leg's over here. 6 is your short adjacent, and then your entire hypotenuse is x plus 6. Why is that doing that? X plus 6. I don't know why it keeps doing this. All right, so x plus, oh boy, this is not good, kids. This is not good. Is it 6 times x plus 6? All right. Oh boy. I hope you guys are understanding this. So we get 100 equals, you'll distribute this in, you'll get 6x plus 36. You're going to subtract 36. All right. So you'll get 64 equals 6x. Come on, man. 64 equals, I'm going to write it over here, 64 equals 6x, and you'll divide by 6, and you'll get x equals, you'll get a decimal there. I don't know, whatever 64 divided by 4 is. 64, 10.6 repeated. Now, I just made this up. So here's the deal. Ready? You have your formula. You can rewind. You're probably making fun of me. Whatever. Here's the deal. All right. You can only use these formulas if you've done your homework from yesterday. So please make sure that you are doing that. So let's do a couple of these. So on page 98, you're going to want to make sure that you write these down, and we're going to get going on these. All right. So here we go. Let's see if this is going to work right now. All right. So here we go. Solve for. Why does it put the eraser up? I don't know why the eraser is still up. That's not good. All right, let's see if I can do it with my... All right, so here we go. Solve for x. So to solve for x, you got to look at your big triangle. All right, you got to always look at your big triangle and what side are you given in the big triangle. All right, are you given an altitude? Are you given an altitude? No. So you're not doing the altitude formula. So you must have been given a leg, either this leg or this leg. And you were given a leg. You were given a leg of x. So that means that we are going to start this problem off like this. Ready? You're going to start it off as x squared. All right. So you're going to go, all right, x squared is equal to, now, as you travel down the x, all right, so leg squared. So it's leg squared equals short adjacent, so it's going to be 14 times the entire hypotenuse. And the entire hypotenuse is 17, because 14 plus 3 is 17. All right? And now what you're going to do is you're going to simplify. So you're going to get x squared equals 14 times 17 equals 238. And you'll take the square root. And here's the deal. 238 does not have a perfect square in it. All right, 238 does not have a perfect square. How do I know that? Well, if you look back at the two numbers that you're multiplying, 17 is prime. So I know that I'm not going to get a multiple out of that. All right, anything that, I'm not going to get any perfect squares out of that. And 14, the only two numbers that give me 14 are 2 and 7. And neither of those are a perfect square, which means 238 is prime. Yay. Well, not necessarily prime. It just can't be simplified using perfect squares. So it's going to be x equals the square root of 238, which sucks because it's not anything fun, but that's a really nice answer right there. All right. Now, number 2, if you look at this again, start with your big triangle. When you do this, start with your big triangle and take a look. Are you given an altitude? And if you look, yeah, I am given an altitude. I'm given an altitude. From the right angle, I got an altitude here. So that means I'm going to do the altitude formula. I'm going to go altitude squared. So I'm going to start with x squared equals, now altitude's great because it's left times right. All right? So it's going to be 18 times, now, I don't know the right, but you do. Since the entire hypotenuse is 72, you're going to go 72 minus 18 is 54. All right, is 54. Let's see. All right, so now, let's see if this will let me use the pen. Oh, it does. Okay, cool. So now, you're going to multiply these together. Now, I know that I'm going to be able to get a perfect square out of here because 18 has 2 times 9, so I know there's a perfect square multiple in here. So I know I'm going to get x squared equals, all right, 18 times 54, which is 9. Really? Oh, boy. There you go. 972. And I just always check. 972, is that a perfect square? No, it's not, because you get 31 point something. So what we're going to want to do is look for a perfect square in 972. So I know 9 goes in there. 972 divided by 9 is 108. But 108 can keep going. I know 108 has a perfect square in there. So I'm going to go 972 divided by 36 is actually 27. 27 has a perfect square in it of 9 also. So we need a bigger perfect square. So 972... Here we go. So what we're going to have is we're going to have a large perfect square. So check this out. All right, we're going to get x equals. All right, so 972 is the square root of 81. Oh boy, I don't know why that's happening. I'm not even touching the screen. Oh man. All right, kids, I apologize, but you might end up, I might just end this thing because this is a waste of my time right now. All right, sorry. Oh boy, it's just writing stuff now. I don't even know how to keep doing this. Square root of 81 times the square root of 12. All right. Now the square root of 81 is 9. 12 can keep going. Now I know more perfect squares, but off the top of my head, I couldn't think of any more. But 12 can keep going. 12 can keep simplifying to the square root of 4 times the square root of 3. And the square root of 4 is 2 root 3. So it's going to be 9 times 2 root 3. So my answer is actually going to be x equals 18 root 3. All right, hopefully you figured that out because here you get the square root of 12, and that's where I was going with it. All right, 18 root 3. All right, so now page 101. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to try number 5. Nah, let's do this. We'll do number 5 together. Now, number 5, I kind of got to scroll and look at it. So if you look at this problem, all right, number 5, all right, let me actually make this a little bit smaller. That's really small. All right, so if you look at it, all right, and you look at your big triangle, all right, if you look at that, you're going to say to yourself, all right, I have a leg, a variable as a leg, and I don't have this leg, so I can either use a leg or I can use an altitude. All right, now what I always do is I just do a little quick test and see. If I did a leg, if I went b squared, leg squared, all right, so I traveled down the leg. Leg squared equals short adjacent, so 25, times the entire hypotenuse. Well, the entire hypotenuse has another variable in it. It's 25 plus f. So 25 plus f. Could you solve for two variables at the same time? And the answer is no. So unfortunately, all right, unfortunately, you can't solve the leg first, all right? You can't solve the leg because you have two variables there. So what you have to do is you have to solve not for the altitude, but you have to use the altitude first, meaning we're going to go altitude squared, or 60 squared, is equal to left part, so 25, times the right part, which is f. You see that? So sometimes you have to use a leg or an altitude, even if you have it, but that's the only way you can go and solve for a missing side length here. Because we'll come back and use this guy that we just did for the leg. We'll come back and use that in a second once we find the value of f. So we're going to go 60 squared is 3,600 equals 25f. We're going to divide by 25, and you're going to get f equals 3600 divided by 25, you're going to get 144. And 144 is f, 144. So now what I can do is I can use this b squared, or leg squared, and I can go, all right, b squared is equal to short adjacent, so 25, times the entire distance, so 25 plus 144 is 169. Now, check this out, a little bit of number knowledge. Because both numbers that I'm multiplying are perfect squares, my sum, my product, is going to be a perfect square itself. So b squared, it's just a rule. So b squared is going to equal 25 times 169 is 4225. And because both of these numbers were perfect squares, I can actually type this in my calculator, the square root of 4225, and you're going to get b equals 65, a perfect whole answer. See that? So, all right, this is using the formulas. Leg squared equals short adjacent times the entire hypotenuse. And then the first formula you had to use was altitude equals left times right. All right, so what I want you to do, I want you to pause the video and I want you to try number 6 on your own, all right, and see if you did it the same way and got the same answers as me, all right? There are 3 variables. There's a, b, and x. So I want you to try to find all 3 variables, all right? Go. All right, so here we go. So I look at this. I have 3 variables. From the big triangle, I have a leg, all right? I have a leg, I have an altitude, and a leg. So I get my choice. If you look at the hypotenuse of the big triangle, there's no variables there. So you literally could have chosen any side, leg, or altitude, and still gotten an answer. So what I'm going to do, all right, is I'm going to, for me, I just find the altitude first, all right? And I'll show you why I do that. So I'm going to go altitude squared, or x squared, equals, all right, left times right, 8 times 4.5. Now, if you remember yesterday in class, anytime you have a decimal, so 8 times 4.5, 4.5 gives you 36. Sorry, take that back. We're going to get x equals 6. What I was going to say is anytime you take the square root of a decimal, just give me that decimal answer. You're not going to be able to simplify it. So x equals 6. Now, here's the deal. You could choose to either do Pythagorean theorem to find a and b now, or you can use your shortcuts. Well, since we're doing shortcuts today, let's practice shortcuts, all right? But if you just do one of the shortcuts to find your altitude, which is why I always do my altitude, I can actually use Pythagorean theorem to find the other sides. So now, let's find b first. So we're going to go leg squared, so b squared is equal to short adjacent, which is 8, because that's adjacent to the b, times the entire length of the hypotenuse. So this entire length here is 12.5. 12.5. So we're going to go 8 times 12.5 equals 100. So we're going to go b squared equals 100. Take the square root, and you're going to get b equals 10. So we got x, we got b. Now let's find a. Now a is another leg. So we're going to go a squared is equal to short adjacent, so 4.5, times the entire hypotenuse, which is 12.5 again. So 4.5 times 12.5 equals a squared equals 56.25. Now this is a decimal, so give me a decimal answer. You put this in your calculator. So the square root of 56.25 equals 7.5. You won't be able to simplify that without just putting it in your calculator. All right, let's see. Do I got any other examples? All right, let's talk about this one. So page 103, number 9. I believe this is our last one, and then you're going to go get your homework. All right. Number 9 says, find the values of A, B, and C. So if you look at this problem, all right, there's got to be some sort of strategy of where we go. Because if you look, all right, unlike the last problem, your B, your leg, and your altitude of the big triangle, all right, you have two variables, but B, notice this guy right here, all right, 12, the altitude, that has no variable. So I'm probably going to start looking at 12 first before I go to the legs. The legs, there's a good shot that I'm not going to be able to solve them because there's a double variable, meaning my entire hypotenuse is C, and I need the hypotenuse, the total hypotenuse, to find my legs. So since I have variables, that's not going to work. So what I got to do now is I got to find the value of C first. Now watch this. If I'm going to use the altitude, the formula is altitude squared, or 12 squared, is equal to left, so it's 9, times right. Now here's the deal. I don't know what the right is, but if I know the entire hypotenuse, it's entire C minus 9. So it's going to be C minus 9 is my total hypotenuse's length. So now that's how I do my altitude formula. So I'm going to go 144, or 12 squared, equals 144, equals, now you distribute the 9, so you're going to get 9C minus 81, because 9 times negative 9 is negative 81. We'll add 81. So you'll get 144 plus 81. All right, so you're going to get 225 equals 9C. Divide by 9, and you're going to get C equals 225 divided by 9 is 25. Bam. So we got C here. C is 25. Now, what I like to do is, along with finding what C, I'm going to find what this other one is. So if I put 25 in here, 25 minus 9 is 16. So this short side right here, the short adjacent, is going to be 16, and I need that to find A. So that's what I'm going to go to next. I'm going to find A. Now you could have found B, but I'm going to find A. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go, all right, A, which is a leg squared, equals short adjacent, so 16, times the entire hypotenuse, 25. Now check this out. I have two numbers that are perfect squares that are being multiplied, so my answer should come out to be a perfect square. So I'm going to get A squared equals 16 times 25 is 400, and 400 is a perfect square, which will give you A equaling 20. So we got A, we got C. So now our last one is B. B is a leg, so you're going to go B squared is equal to short adjacent, so 9 times the entire hypotenuse, which is 25 again. So again, perfect squared 9, perfect squared 25. My answer should come out. So I got B squared equals 9 times 25 is 225. and the square root of 225 is b equals 15. So I got a of 20, b of 15, and c of 25. So that's using the shortcut, and that's what I want you to do on your homework tonight. All right, so what I'd like you to do, go up to the sub and ask for worksheet 5.3.3 day 2 and get started on that. All right, thank you. Have a good day. Good day.